Okay, my name is LaQuentin Jenkins, and this is Ms. Sato, our representative in the Sealy area. And we are many things, but today we primarily want to make you aware of some of the things that we do that focuses on the senior market and our investments and our time spent with there. So to begin, to start with, I'm going to pass out a couple of things for you. I intentionally waited. I wanted you to wait before you turn it over, okay? Take this side. Don't turn it over just yet.
We need one more. It's tense.
Yes, just one more.
Yeah.
And two. So I'm going to ask you to turn it over. And it's orange tennis shoes and polka dot socks. Any idea? One, what color shoes I have on? Tennis shoes. Unless you're colorblind. What type of socks do I have on? So when you think orange tennis shoes and polka dot socks, I want you to draw a reference to a big part of what our company does that focuses on the baby boomers, so to speak. We have a market that we focus on that's underage as well as those that are over the age of 65 and the challenges they have in the many different areas of life. As I mentioned before, my name is LaQuentin Jenkins. I'm gonna get back to the orange shoes and polka dot socks. But believe it or not, as I mentioned before, I used to actually be an engineer many years ago. I worked at Sequoia Nuclear Plant, which is just north of Chattanooga, Tennessee. I'll be back there in a couple of weeks meeting with some physicians there. And I used to work in the area where I had to go into containment, okay? Containment is where a lot of there's radioactivity, right? I used to always find it amazing that on this side of the yellow tape, it was radioactive, but on the other side of the tape, it was not. But the only distance between us is what? Air and space. And I always had an issue that every day when I went to leave containment, and I either take off your dress, and as you go out, exit out, you have to go through almost like you see at the airport now, and it's a machine that registers at your level of radiation. So for whatever reason, I was always highly radioactive. Everybody else just walking through. So your level had to be below 6 millirads. If it was above, you had to literally sit down, decontaminate before you left the building. So after doing that for a few months, I'm like, hold on, wait a minute. I'm 22 years old. I kind of want to have kids someday. My dad has a head full of hair and he's 70. So, I started thinking about all those things and thinking I might ought to look at a different career, being that seemed like I was inside there was something that was radioactive that just seemed to stick to me. Now I mention that because in my family, two of the 6 of my immediate family have had cancer. My sister is stage 4, fighting breast cancer for the 3rd time. Her first time when she was at 5 years old. The second time when she was at 17 years old. They actually removed the breast at that time. And again, we started the battle again almost 2 years ago when she turned 45. This time the breast cancer is 2 different forms. There's one form in the right side. There's another form in the left side that's permeated throughout her body. So you can imagine she has 2 sons. One's a senior in high school and one's a senior in college. So the financial impact, the mental, emotionally, stability, all of that is very, very challenging. Not to mention my youngest nephew goes to school in Chicago, and it's not the cheapest school you've ever seen. My father, we were celebrating 10 years. This June, we celebrated 10 years of survival. He was diagnosed with cancer. Ready? He was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 60. Matter of fact, I had to make a decision. My father's prostate was being removed, but my baby was about to be born. It was like a week between. I had to figure out, what am I going to do? Am I going home? Am I wait? What's that scenario going to be back? My grandfather passed away of cancer. So you're like, why are you telling me these things? The reason I'm telling you these things because everything we do in our organization is personal. And I assume that in many of you and what you do is personal. It always goes back to the reason why. Why do you do what you do? Well, my mother is disabled. She's disabled from taking care of my grandmother. My grandmother loved her to death. There was a lot of her to love. But as many of us, as our parents mature, they reach a stage of some time in which they can't take care of themselves. And if they're not prepared and you're not prepared in the middle of life, create some changes for us, right? My mother's thing was, I'm going to retire at the age of 55 and I'm going to travel. Now she travels. I mean, she just got back from Toronto. Before that, she was in the Keys. And then before that, she took a bus, I don't know why, from Alabama all the way to Las Vegas. She said she had a lot on her mind. I'm like, after the first 10 miles, my mind would have been clear. But the reality is she's disabled. She's gone from the stage of being a 5'2", 135-pound woman to now, let's say there's more of her to love. It affects her mentally, emotionally, and physically. But she became in that situation from taking care of my grandmother. She messed her back up. So particularly those of that are my age, I'll be 50 years old next year. One of the great concerns we have is what happens as our parents mature. My father always told me, son, you have one responsibility to me. Always be able to take care of yourself and your family. Remember your last name, that whatever you do, you represent me, and you must be done with honor. So those are things that are very important to me. But as I talk to many of my peers, and we're dealing with the situations as our parents maturing, it throws a curveball, right? No one goes into retirement as they mature in life thinking about, what am I going to do when my parents get older, right? It's not part of the, most financial planners, and I was talking to you about, okay, I understand you're saving your resources for retirement, but let's talk about your parents. Are your parents financially stable? So why you mention that? Because in 2015 Medicare and U Book, okay, Medicare stated that 70% of the people over the age of 65, if they live to be 65, 70% of them will have some type of encounter, right, with that experience. So what does that do to the budget of those of us who are saving for retirement? Or those of us who have kids later in life? I had my daughter, I was 40 years old. 40 years old, one child, and I started thinking, well, she's gonna be 58. I'll be 58 when she graduates high school. Depending on her education, I'll be 63, 64 when she finishes college. Just let you resonate, let you think about that for a minute. So as I think about all those things and experience, you ask, how do he get from engineering to this, to insurance, to marketing, to consulting? That is how. Life threw me a curveball, and I started wearing the orange tennis shoes and polka dot socks. You have no idea what many people are dealing with. You know, our traditional dress is shirt and tie from a business perspective, you know, slacks, coat, and dress shoes. But that's not how life is. That's not what many people deal. You see them up here, but underneath you have no idea what's beneath the surface and the things that they're dealing with. So our organization is designed in doing two things. One, working with younger people to prepare for themselves and their parents. Secondly, those who have reached their age, helping them prepare and to do the best they can with the resources that they have. That is a huge task, but what we've done, we've drawn them together. And what Susie represents in the area is that she's one of those representatives in the area that focuses on working with those that retire in terms of Medicare, all the various aspects of Medicare. I know any of you that are currently on Medicare, you read the 152-page book every year from one end of the cover to the next, right? And you understand all the details of everything that's in it, right? Most of my clients give them to me and they have circle marks from where they set their coffee on top of it. But that's our responsibility. Our responsibility is understand what your options are, what our clients' options are. We prefer in most of our situations to meet with the client and their children. Sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't work. We notice, one of the things I've noticed as my father continues to mature, so to speak, he's set in his ways. He drives to, he's going to retire this year. He drives to work the same way every day. He puts his keys in the same place every day. He sits in the same chair on the same side of the chair that's sloped and will not let my mother buy another one. He has that routine. He comes in, he gets his clothes out, he places his clothes so they're ready for the next day. Yes, I'm married. My mother's married $1,000 a month in support, and it barely costs her over $56 a month. It's for her to be taken care of in the home, because I say me, I do not want to go to a nursing home. When I get to that stage of life, I want to be taken care of or be in my home. And that's what we focus on. But for those who don't have those relationships to help sustain it and maintain it, we work with them to go into a facility. Now, one of the couple of things I want to leave you with, right? Number one, many people think that long-term care has to be a separate policy. It is not. Many of my clients who've purchased life insurance policy with riders or with included benefits that within their life insurance policy, it covers long-term care, critical illness, chronic conditions. So if a person goes into an assisted living, long-term care facility or care at home, their policy, the life insurance policy covers it. I really emphasize that for us that are under 50 or under 55, because there's guaranteed value. The reason there's guaranteed value there is because if something happens to us, if we don't use it, guess what? We still have the death benefit of the life insurance policy. If we do use it, right, a part of the death benefit is reduced by what you utilize. So it's a win-win situation. Now I want to be conscious of the time. I only have a couple of more minutes. I want to talk to you about the brochures. So the brochures that you see there, this is something that's near and dear to my heart. When I fly out to Atlanta in the next couple of weeks, I'll be meeting with different senior care facilities across the nation and different physicians across the nation that go through this process. Is there anyone, don't raise your hand, but is there anyone in the room that takes medication? Okay. Has there anyone in the room been prescribed medication and felt like crap? Your medication didn't make you feel better, it made you feel what? That's a common theme you hear. Well, I've been doing a lot of research. Now, again, everything that I do in an organization, even in terms of working with individuals such as Susie, the whole reason of me working with Susie and people similar to her, they are 50 years or older. They've either been downsized, career change, whatever the situation is. I work with them to develop and build a business so they can have the freedom and flexibility and still supplement their retirement income. But as it relates to the brochure, when my mother, she's left-handed and she had a beautiful handwriting. Unlike my father and I didn't inherit that from her. She had a beautiful handwriting, but now she's on so many medications, when she writes, her hand is like this. So I began to try to figure out, well, why are you taking these bags of medication? That's the thing that we always said. My grandmother took a lot of medicine. I refuse to even take an aspirin or Tylenol. But Mom, you own all these medications. When she come to look after my daughter when she was younger, she wouldn't take her medication because she was afraid it would make her incoherent or fall asleep. So I began then doing research, talking with physicians at Stanford, different places around the country, what can we do about this? Because all these medications, there must be some type of adverse drug reaction. Whether you realize it or not, more than 110,000 people die every year from adverse drug reactions. More than 2.2 million people are admitted into the hospital just because the doctor did not test for sensitivity to medication before he prescribed the medicine. And any physician would tell you, they would look in the eye and tell you, they cannot prescribe you a medication that they can guarantee, one, is going to work with your genetic makeup, but also work with all the other medications that you are taking. And that's a cocktail, so to speak, that creates some challenging situations. So the brochure that you see in front of you kind of give you a little bit of information about that. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out at us any time. I'm cognizant of having like 2 minutes thing left on the thing. But what I want you to keep in mind, one, whatever your situation is, whether it's you or your if you're a family member, it's not too late. Something can be done. The next thing I want you to understand that you're not in it alone. That many of us have polka dotted socks on, where there are things we're dealing with that the general population is not aware of, right? And 3, don't try to do it by yourself. Whether you have a mental challenge, emotional challenge, physical challenge, it's a whole lot easier to exercise if there's someone going with you, right? You don't have to run that mile alone. So in those situations, do not try to do it by yourself. I'm not even asking you to call Susie and myself. I'm asking you to reach out to someone, because particularly as it relates to Medicare and long-term care, making the decision alone is challenging. I spend hours every week training agents on Medicare. And most of them still don't get it. It takes a while. So as our parents, our grandparents, and ourselves began to work with Medicare, understand if we are spending hours training the agents and they still don't, it takes a while for them to get it, don't be so, reach out for help with someone in that sense. And the last thing of the day, I always send out, be conscious of who you give your personal information to. Be conscious of who you talk to on the phone. I know a lot of things now with insurance and with everything, they're trying to push you to do everything electronically. If Equifax can be broken into, right? If Hillary Clinton's server can be infiltrated, right? Make sure you're seeing people face to face, right? One of the things that we're doing, we have a virtual portal that we can send you a link, you click on your phone and you can see us, okay? Make sure that you're doing it, and the reason is, right here is a stack of a young lady I'm dealing with I met with last night. Fraud. They convinced her because she had medical bills that they were gonna help her pay her bills, so on and so forth. She's in terms, her medical, all this stuff together is $28,000. Guess how much she has to pay to get help? $7,900. She's paying $543 every single month. If you're paying $543 every month, they are taking of that over $300 for their services. How much do you think is actually going to the bills? Very, very little. So be cognizant of that for yourselves, of your parents, of your fear. I know, a lot of things is pushing us to be electronic. I'm pushing you not to do that. Talk to someone. Thank you for your time. Glad to be here. Do you have any questions?
Yeah. First, everyone else. Any questions?
Snide remarks, anything you want to throw them at Susie.
Yeah. No, but let's go a step back, Quentin. What products do you actually offer? You had a whole palette of subjects that you covered and addressed, but I was only able to identify 2. One was the life insurance, offering life insurance,
right?
And in conjunction with that, the long-term care insurance.
Okay.
Are these the 2 products, or just in a nutshell?
Okay.
What are they?
Absolutely. So I only talked about 2 because we have several departments and they're meeting. Number 1, long-term care. Long-term care, short-term care, that's one category, all right? That consists of the assisted living, home health care, nursing home, and adult daycare. Number 2, life insurance. Whether that be with riders that covers long-term care, that whether it be universal life, advanced life insurance. We have clients who dump large sums of money into prepare for retirement utilization of their life insurance. So final expense, burial, all those things. We provide annuities, okay? Because we deal mostly with the senior population, we do not deal in variable annuities. All of our annuities focus on those that have earned their money, and I learned this from my father. My father say, most of us concerned about the return of our money than the return on our on our money. So fixed and index and annuities. The other thing we offer is health insurance. Health insurance for those that are going on Medicare, whether it be Medicare Supplement, Medicare Advantage plans, dental, vision, all the supplemental plans associated with that. We have a huge book of business for commercial insurance, meaning those individuals that are under the age of 65, small business owners. We provide them with their health insurance and all the supplemental insurance associated with that. And that in conjunction led us into working with our clients for the, because we have a lot of doctors and dentists and pharmacists we represent, led us into the testing for genetic testing for cancer, as well as what's called PGX, which is pharmacogenomics. Basically, it does nothing more than test the metabolism of medication to make sure that it metabolizes and that your body can actually use what it's taking and that it doesn't counter-react with anything else in your body. So that little spiel is the reason why I didn't say everything, because there's quite a few areas that we've
My other interest, LaQuentin, is you've been here now for what, 6 months, your office?
No, I've actually been working there about 10 years.
But here in Sealy?
About 6 months, yes.
Okay. What made you decide to come to Sealy and why?
Well, one, I used to work in close to the area, so many of the people I was connected with was in the area at that time. Two, I'm contemplating moving closer to this area, and I do a lot of research in this area from Katy to Fulshire is one of the fastest growing areas in the city. So I'm thinking about property value. I'm thinking about community. I'm thinking about, is this a good environment for my child to go up in? Anyone that watches the news in Houston, you know, there's a lot going on. So I'm looking to move into an area physically where I feel my daughter could have an upbringing closer to what I had in small town America.
Very good. LaQuentin, thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Our next speaker